Hi there, and welcome back to this channel if you have been here before, or welcome if you are new. I'm Sándor, and I'm here to talk about my eating disorder recovery and anything else that's related to the topic. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional or a therapist. I only talk about my recovery because I believe it can be helpful to hear that other people went through the same stuff you are going through and they came out the other end. Keep in mind that these are just my opinions and experiences. Nothing I say is meant to be prescriptive. Some of the things that work for me could work for you as well, but recovery takes some experimentation, and you need to be in charge of that.
Today we are talking about a part of recovery that I think is not discussed enough, even though it is a normal part of recovery for a lot of us, and that is feeling nostalgia for your eating disorder, or romanticizing the part of your life when your eating disorder symptoms were the most severe. Feeling nostalgia for something that you know was detrimental to your health can be a bit confusing, to say the least, and the fact that there is not enough discourse about this phenomenon can make you wonder if something is wrong with you. I personally think there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with feeling nostalgic about your eating disorder, as long as you don't start obsessing about it or you don't spend too much time on it. I think it's actually a normal part of the recovery process for a lot of us, and here is why. It's perfectly normal to be ambivalent about your recovery, both before starting the whole journey and throughout it. And in addition, your motivation will wax and wane, which is, again, perfectly normal because that's how human beings work. Since recovery takes a lot of time, you can experience recovery burnout, or whenever you hit a roadblock or don't feel like the work you've been putting in has paid off, or maybe you have wandered too far from your comfort zone, or let's say you don't receive the type of support that you feel you need at the moment, chances are, sooner or later, you will start second-guessing your recovery and you will start fantasizing about the good old days. But are you sure that the good old days were that good? I think once you have made a little bit of progress in recovery and you are no longer in the thick of it, it is easy to forget how bad it actually was, and it's easy to look back at it through these rose-tinted glasses. So in that regard, living with an eating disorder is kind of similar to living in an abusive relationship. People tend to go back to their abusive partners. And they do this not just because they tend to forget how poorly their abusive partner treated them, but because the time they spent in that relationship previously set them up for coming back. An abusive partner makes you dependent on them. They will take your right to make your own decisions. They will control what kind of identity you can have. They will also undermine your self-esteem, and they will isolate you from your loved ones. Can you guess who or what else is doing the same thing to you? Your eating disorder. And if you have been controlled by your eating disorder for a while, you will probably find it hard to make decisions for yourself, let go of old patterns and habits, just to venture outside of your comfort zone and explore your identity outside of your eating disorder. And because of this, I think it's almost a given that you will experience some sort of an identity crisis in your eating disorder recovery. No wonder that you start thinking about going back to your eating disorder, because even if it was terrible, at least it was familiar. And it's not just the familiarity of it. There is this kind of regression back to childhood when you are dealing with an eating disorder, because as your body and interests and, hobbies and your whole personality shrink, your entire life shrink along with them. That means you will stop doing adult things, or things most people of your age do. You will start saying no to your responsibilities, and you will stop making important life decisions. And basically, you will stop showing up in your own life to retreat to your ED cocoon instead. You will create an existence for yourself where everything is routine and governed by your eating disorder rules. There are no unexpected things happening. There is no novelty, no exposure to new things that would make you step outside of your comfort zone. So in a way, because of the things I've just listed, living with an eating disorder can be a simple existence. It's not easy, but it's simple. And when you start recovering and, just participating in your own life again, you will have to confront all of these things that you've been trying to run away from. And in my experience, that is uncomfortable, challenging, and scary. So no wonder that you are longing for that simplicity and familiarity that your eating disorder provided you with. So people with an eating disorder use their behaviors to cope with or distract from emotions that feel overwhelming at the moment. A huge part of recovery will be about reconnecting to these feelings, and that doesn't necessarily feel nice, to say the least. It's quite the opposite in my experience, but in my opinion, this is one of the main reasons why recovery feels worse before it starts feeling better. Just think about it for a moment. All those feelings you've been pushing out your mind are still there for you to feel, and you will have to learn how to deal with them and how to feel and regulate them, which is, in my experience, again, messy and uncomfortable and involves a lot of crying, but it gets better eventually. Let's not forget about the changes that your body is going through in recovery. Changes you will not be comfortable with, including weight gain or, for example, digestive discomfort. And you know what's even worse? People will notice these changes and they are going to comment on them. So prepare for compliments such as, "Oh, you look so much healthier now," or "Oh, you are not as skinny as you used to be," or something along those lines. And even though you rationally know that these comments are well-meaning and your body needs to change and needs to heal in recovery, the eating disorder voice in your in your head. Your eating disorder voice is indeed a hell, but so the eating disorder voice in your head will latch onto these comments and it will start abusing you. It will probably try to make you give up on recovery. So again, I think it's perfectly normal, given these circumstances, that someone would start fantasizing about the time when you didn't have to deal with your body changing and people commenting on the fact that your body is changing. It is also possible to miss the compliments that you receive for your eating disordered body, especially if your eating disorder involved losing a visible amount of weight. And even if that body, your eating disordered body, was sick and achieving that body isolated you and it was probably killing you, people around you likely complimented it, which is just fucked up in my opinion. But those compliments gave you validation that what you are doing is apparently the right thing, because other people are celebrating it. So even though you are doing something that's killing you, you received praise for it, so it must be the right thing, right? On top of these things that I've already mentioned, another important thing that you can miss is the sense of being in control. A false sense of control, I should add, because when you have an eating disorder, it's easy to feel that you are in control of something or you are achieving something through your eating disorder habits and rituals. But in reality, it is your eating disorder that has taken control of you. You just haven't noticed it yet. Eventually, you will have to come to the realization and you will have to accept that no amount of eating disorder behaviors will grant you control over the parts of your life you are trying to run away from. Okay, those were the main points I wanted to talk about today. I guess the take-home message is that, in my opinion, feeling nostalgia for your eating disorder is not only normal, but an expected part of recovery at some point in your recovery. Meaning you can be fully committed to your recovery and thankful for how far you have come, yet have moments where you miss your eating disorder. Feeling nostalgic for your eating disorder doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are relapsing. It means that you are human. It may also signal that there is some work to be done. One thing that you can do about your nostalgia is reaching out to your support system and reevaluating if the kind of support or the amount of support you are receiving right now is the right for you and appropriate for you at the moment. Another thing to counter, so to speak, the romanticizing would be a writing assignment you can find in the 8 Keys book by Carolyn. It's called Your Worst Eating Disorder Day, but you may struggle with choosing your actual worst eating disorder day. So you can just think about a very, very bad eating disorder day when you are working on this assignment. So what you have to do is writing down in specific detail the day's events. For example, what and how much you ate, whether you have purged or not, used laxatives, exercised compulsively, or engaged in any other eating disorder behavior. You should also take note of your feelings before, during, and after engaging in these behaviors, or any time during that day. And you should also include any lies or dishonesty involved in that day, and how it affected you, and how it affected other people around you. And after you are finished, read aloud what you have written. Just be prepared that this exercise will probably have a powerful effect on you, but the point on reflecting on your worst eating disorder day, or on the worst of your eating disorder days, is to become fully aware what your life with an eating disorder has become. Hopefully, this exercise will help you see why you should want to get better and not go back to your eating disorder. And if you feel overwhelmed after this exercise, try using that energy as motivation to recover, so you don't have to have more days like the one you just wrote about. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe or like if you plan to come back. I hope you will have a great day, or at least a reasonable one, if you are going through something difficult right now.